All right, now, BB Nate, after you've had a chance, I guess, for a few days now at least, to process this, has your opinion on Star Wars Visions changed any?
Definitely not. I think that I'm excited to see how the fans are reacting to it. It's mainly positive. I'm excited to watch it again. I'm going to watch it again at some point. No, my opinion has not changed on it.
All right, cool. What about you, Samuel the Hutt?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, I only like it more now that I think about it, but I'm with Nate. I want to watch it again. It was that good. Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, I've had a chance to watch TOB1 again today, and I love it even more than the first time that we saw it. And we're going to look at that crazy short, along with a preview of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and our review of What If Thor Were an Only Child. That's all coming up next. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was
Sorry about that.
Perfect timing.
That's kind of the reaction that I had when I started watching the statistics for that episode of our podcast on our dashboard. They just kept going up by the exponentially hundreds. Like every minute, it felt like it was going up. That became
on which episode was this one?
This was our interview with James Watt and Kanako Shirasaki last week. Or this previous week, I guess. It's been a crazy week, but it became our most listened to episode of the show in its history.
Of all time?
Of all time in just over 24 hours. That was...
What was the view count last you saw? Or the download count?
I don't even know what it is right now. So it was through the roof. So that was cool. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. All right. We are the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and be endorsed by Rian Johnson. That's what you just heard on the intro sequence there, if you're new to the show. And there are a lot of you that are new to the show. And also, we found out this week that we are the number 2 podcast on Screen Rant's list of the 10 best podcasts for Star Wars
not even
fans.
Exclusively Star Wars.
No, that's crazy.
It's been a awesome, crazy week for the show. So we're pretty excited about that. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation, that there is a story that is written on our souls, and that these myths, all of these stories speak to that. And that is why we are talking about TOB1 from Star Wars Visions, and What If Thor Were an Only Child, and Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and the lessons that these stories can teach us. I am David. I am the dad.
Hello, Father. Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. I am honored to be joined every week by my 2 amazing sons, BB Nate. What are you talking about? You're going to do Venom, right?
I am. Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage. And actually, the end credit scene for Venom Let There Be Carnage is so important and so big that they haven't let the media sources that got early screenings actually see it.
That's crazy. I've never heard of something like that.
The universe is expanding. All right, Sam, you're talking about What If, as usual.
Yeah, it seems like S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a fan of planet-wide parties, apparently.
It just depends. Are they going to clean up before mom gets home? What
about you, Dad?
Well, I'm going to make the case that TOB1 from Star Wars Visions is intended to mirror the Dagobah scenes in The Empire Strikes Back.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're gonna get all into that in just a minute. We want to stop though, and thank you guys so much for listening to the show. As I mentioned just a second ago, we know that there are a lot of you that are very new to Tatooine Sons after that bonus episode with James Wong Obi-Wan Kanako Shirasaki, and how that became, like we mentioned, our most listened to episode in the history of the show in just 24 hours. So if you're new to the show, we want to say welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining us. Please take a second to follow the show on your favorite podcast app of choice, whatever you use, and stick around to the end of the show. We have another it's
like we said, it's been a crazy week.
We have another very exciting announcement coming about another special couple guests, so you're not going to want to miss it. All right. You guys ready to talk about TOB1?
Sure.
Let's do it.
All right. It is safe to say that Star Wars Visions has been very well received by both critics and audiences since its release earlier this week. And we're continuing our look at this groundbreaking anime series with the cutest of all of the shorts, T0B, or it's not T0.
It's TO. TOB1.
TOB1. That makes a lot more sense. If you're not, if you're not paying attention closely, though, you might miss how much it feels like The Empire Strikes Back.
Bulky religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
The 80-20 rule of Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right. Sam, why don't you explain it to those listeners that may be unfamiliar with our theory?
We have seen multiple times over the years that there's an 80-20 split when it comes to fan reactions. You got 80% of fans who really like the new content, right?
No matter what it is.
No matter what it is. They love it. They're not usually super vocal about it, but they'll tell you they like it. And you got 20% who really don't like whatever it is, and they will shout it at the rooftops that they do not like whatever it is.
So here we go with Star Wars Visions. Now, have you guys seen the Rotten Tomato scores on this?
I have not, no.
Okay. BB Nate?
No.
Now, the critic scores were really high.
Yeah, I've seen those.
What are those?
They're in the 90s, which is really good.
That's I think it's 94%.
That's really good.
For critic scores. You guys want to know what the numbers are for fan scores?
What?
Guess what? 80-20.
So it's 80% positive?
It's 80% positive on it. So certified fresh. You guys need to check it out. All right, here we're gonna go through and look at TOB1. And for those of you that may have been like, Samuel the Hutt and BB Nate that may have only watched it one time and you need a refresher as far as all the details on that, I'm going to give that refresher. Now, if you haven't watched those shorts, you've got a couple of different options. You can go ahead and pause our podcast, go watch TOB1 on Disney Plus.
Less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, so. It's like 17. I think it's only like 13 or 14 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
And then come back and you can pick up with our spoiler reaction, or maybe the spoiler reaction will actually help you when you watch TOB1. But let's do this. Let's do the recap. Basically, TOB1 is Pinocchio, but in a galaxy far, far away. It tells the story of a young droid who is built by a Jedi who's in hiding on a barren planet after Order 66. And this Jedi is on a mission to bring life to the wasteland where he lives. Meanwhile, the droid is dreaming of adventure in the stars and becoming a Jedi himself, which isn't all that surprising. He has Obi-Wan in his name. So when the exiled Jedi Master tells his apprentice, tells TOB1, that there's actually a Kyber crystal on the planet and that he must find it if he is ever going to have a chance to become a Jedi, the impatient droid starts looking everywhere he can think of to find it, without any success. After a while, he realizes that the only location he hasn't checked is the basement that his master has forbidden him to go into. And so in this moment, TOB1's desire overtakes his obedience, and he finds, when he goes into the basement, he finds the Jedi's starship. But he gets all excited about it. TOB1 starts pressing a bunch of buttons, and now the Empire is notified of the location of this Jedi Master. When the Master finally reveals who he truly is to TOB1, he sends the droid into hiding while he confronts the Empire and is then killed. And then after some time, TOB1, he emerges from the hiding. He sees the destruction that his choices have brought, including the death of his master. He then vows to continue his master's work of bringing life to the dead planet that he's on. He's successful at it, and then a secret is unlocked. Obi-Wan literally has a heart of Kyber, mimicking
the strongest stars.
Sure, yeah.
From Rogue One, he talks about that. He then uses it to reconstruct his master's lightsaber. That again signals the Inquisitor, who returns to investigate and finds Obi-Wan. They battle. Obi-Wan is clearly outmatched until he's visited by his master's Force ghost, who reveals his true name, Toby, and then knights his Padawan as an official Jedi Knight. Obi-Wan, or Toby, re-engages the Inquisitor, defeats him with the power of the Force, and vows to take his master's mission to other barren planets, because that's what Jedi do, is the way that the episode ends. So now that we are all on the same page with this, give us a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 Kyber crystals. We'll start with you, Nathan. What did you think about this episode?
I'd give it a 7 or an 8. It was really good. It was a breath of fresh air from all the other really dark shorts that they had. And yes, it kind of got really dark towards the end there really fast, but I like the end. It was very hopeful. It's what Star Wars is and what Star Wars is supposed to be. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 7 just because it's not my favorite, but it is a good episode with a good story behind it too, and it's cute and fun. Everything you really want from Star Wars. Yeah,
awesome. I would say, that same 7. I'll go 7.5. I'll split the difference.
There we go.
Between the two of you. I really do like this story. I know I reacted really heavily to it. I think you're going to like this story even more after we talk through some of this. There are a lot of ties into the other Star Wars, stuff on there. I mean, there's one that's really obvious there with the master.
Right. I mean, the master says, as he's, hiding Toby, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. I mean, a clear link to Chirrut and things. And then later on, we see the Inquisitors show up in that TIE Reaper, which is also from Rogue One. So there's a lot of Rogue One references in it too.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you thought of, Nate? You're a big Rebels fan. Did you see the Rebel stuff in there?
I mean, maybe. I mean, there, of course, you had an Inquisitor, which was really...
He was a cool looking Inquisitor.
You had the TIE Advanced, which is tying into Rebels as well.
That one showed up at the Empire Day episode, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you had Mitaka's lightsaber.
Yeah, when he hands the lightsaber to Obi-Wan, it's divided in two, like Kanan would when he was hiding it. So it's kind of
a lot like Kanan's, and
a nod to that.
Also a lot like Ezra's at the end of Rebels. So.
Exactly.
Good point. Yeah,
lots of ties there. The planet, did you guys realize how much it resembled Tatooine?
Yeah, just a little bit whiter.
I mean, even Master Mitaka's homestead his hut looks just like Lars' homestead,
right? Yeah,
from Tatooine, and then his ship.
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
It's the T-16 Skyhopper that Luke plays with in A New Hope.
I remember that.
Which I love how they throw those things in there and they just make them. They're not beating you over the head with these connections, but you can tell that whoever decided to put that in there loves Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a fun little nod to us fans who also recognize it.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys know about this, but in the Legends continuity, there's actually a group of sentient crystals called the Iron Knights, who are capable of using the Force, and they employed entirely robotic bodies. They fought alongside the Jedi during the Clone Wars in the Legends continuity, but then later on were denied entry into the Order until it was reformed by Luke Skywalker.
Never heard of that before.
So they had some Legends stuff that creeped in here as well, because
that's so cool.
Because the idea of a droid becoming, when we talked about this in the preview stuff, it was a little unclear as to maybe that was just some crazy nod, right? Like he was imagining wanting to be a Jedi,
right?
But then in the story itself, he kind of becomes a Jedi.
It's because of the crystal.
But they're tying into Legends.
Yeah, that's really cool
with that. So beyond that, though, there's one really big connection that carries itself all the way through the stories, and that is the connection to The Empire Strikes Back. We have so many of these parallels. I don't know. Did you guys pick up on any of those?
I might have.
No, I picked up on, but I'm curious to see where you're going.
I picked up on a lot of similarities to the some scenes from Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. The scenes where Toby is like daydreaming has like kind of the same feel as the
cave scenes.
The cave scenes.
Oh, interesting.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually really that's a very deep dive into the last.
Well, so is the Iron Knight.
I think it's like the second to last episode of season 1 of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. Very good. What's really sad is that I knew that off the top of my head. Okay.
Yeah,
we're all very sad.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've got a lot of I see a lot of Yoda in Master Mitaka.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, he has this famous, the entire interaction between he and Luke Skywalker on there mirrors a lot of the interaction between Master Mitaka and Obi-Wan. In The Empire Strikes Back, of course, Yoda has the famous line where he says he's talking to the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan in this because Luke is brash and impatient, and this is when he's actually revealing himself to being the Jedi Master Yoda to Luke. And he says, all his life he has looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. There's this moment in this when Master Mitaka is having a conversation with Obi-Wan about him wanting to be a Jedi and go off into the stars. And he says, when it comes to the future, you see there is the distant, but also the immediate. He's talking about kind of looking into the future, looking away.
That's like a direct mirror.
It feels a lot like that. There's others though. Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, he says he's kind of criticizing Luke at this point. He's like, adventure, excitement. I'm not even going to try to do it in the Yoda voice. There's a part of me that wants to.
Do it. Come on. Go there.
Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things.
That was pretty good. It was a little. It's like Yoda on a sick day.
I've been podcasting a lot this week, so I've lost.
It was It was pretty good.
It was good. Mitaka in this says, adventure, excitement. I'm afraid that being a Jedi is not as glamorous as it is in your dreams.
That's crazy.
I feel like this episode made references to the other Star Wars movies way more than any of the other ones.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
I agree.
This felt like a love letter to Star Wars.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And then, of course, Yoda, for my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings. I mean, this is such a famous line.
It is.
Luminous beings, we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. And Mitaka summarizes that into the Force is present in all things with that.
That's crazy.
But I think that the basement element in this, the place where Obi-Wan is forbidden to go, is his Force cave on Dagobah. It's this place where he's going to be forced to be confronted with his own worst reality, his worst moments with that. So all of that seems to kind of tie together on that. What did you think about just the general, the trajectory of the rest of the story from that point in the basement when Master Mitaka hides Obi-Wan, and he comes out of that and finds everything is destroyed around him through the rest of the story there. That's kind of where it's a story divided into two halves. Everything before that and everything after that. What are your thoughts on the story from that point forward?
I mean, he really grows into his own and realizes, okay, I understand why this was so important now. I understand why my master was doing this and I need to continue that work for him. And so he does that. He starts planting and, building more robots, and they do eventually terraform the planet and bring life back to it. And at that point, has he completed his mission, then he can become a Jedi, because he's really fulfilled the Jedi's purpose of bringing life and protecting life, which is what his master was there to do. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the sort of the second half and that trajectory?
It was, for the first half, I was kind of like, okay, it's cute, it's cutesy, it's fun, it's nice. And then they just hit you when Mitaka dies is really when it just spirals into a classic Star Wars good and evil story. You see the good of Toby start to rise out, and him becoming a Jedi, he understands, isn't about adventure or excitement. It's about a duty to the planet and to keep peace, which is always what the Jedi was.
Yeah.
The thing about the Jedi mindset is there's this, as we know, master and then an apprentice, right? In the first half, T-Obi-Wan doesn't really want to be the apprentice.
No.
He wants to do his own thing. He doesn't want him to listen to his master and follow his master's bidding and follow in his master's footsteps. But then in the second half, after everything is destroyed, there's this moment where he can go jump in the ship and leave.
Yeah, he could have.
And go off into the stars, or he could come to grips with, I'm going to fulfill my master's mission. And that's what he does. And that's where everything changes. He matures and he grows, like you guys were saying on that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and throw the dad moment in the episode all the way to the very front.
All right.
At this.
I am your father.
For me, the most powerful moment in this entire short is when T-Obi-Wan is taken into the netherworld of the Force to meet with Master Mitaka's Force Ghost. Mitaka's first words are, don't be afraid, don't worry, you're prepared for this fight. There isn't any judgment, even though T-Obi-Wan's failure to obey his master ended his master's life.
Yeah.
Master Mitaka doesn't see T-Obi-Wan as a droid, incapable of defeating a trained Imperial Jedi hunter. He sees him as Toby, Jedi Knight. Toby isn't defined in this story by his mistakes. He's actually released into becoming the warrior he always dreamed of being. And so as a dad, my hope is that my interactions with you guys is to be able to do the same thing, where you're not defined by mistakes and failures, that the greatest teacher failure is, like Yoda says, and that I can come alongside you and help release you guys into your future instead of helping you guys being stuck in the past with that.
Dang.
So, all right. Where are we at in the show now? Why don't we do this? We're going to have some bad news coming up. We've got more clickbait articles here. George Lucas's ex-wife is not happy with a lot of Star Wars, so we're going to talk about that. What else? There is a leaked image of Professor Xavier that seems to confirm that he's in the multiverse of madness, or maybe not. And BB Nate, this one you sent to me 4 or 5 days ago. WB has decided to restore the Snyderverse. We're going to show why all of those are clickbait.
Chuta, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and...
You got one?
What is it?
Minecraft.
Okay.
Fans.
Cool.
They do have Minecraft.
They do.
stuff.
Oh, good. We've got a very exciting announcement for you.
That's right. Yeah, we are now partnering with Design by Humans. Design by Humans is an amazing collection of artists and creatives who want to offer the best of the best in apparel and accessories for all the geeks and the nerds out there, like you guys.
Yeah, they're awesome. They offer some of the coolest officially licensed Star Wars, Marvel, and DC shirts, mugs, hats, and more. It's really cool.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, if you see an awesome Star Wars or DC or Marvel shirt and wonder where you can get it, you can probably get it at Design by Humans.
And because I know you're wondering, yes, they do have Morris shirts. That like chicken thing we were talking about. The thing you didn't know what it was when you added it to
They
our
do.
store.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
have that.
I've saw it. Yeah, it's awesome.
But they've also got more Shang-Chi stuff. They've got What If, The Mandalorian, Batman, and tons of other cool stuff.
But the best part is when you purchase using the link at TatooineSons.com, 100% of our proceeds from your purchase are used to provide food, medicine, education, and more to a child who desperately needs it.
Yeah. So again, if you are looking for any officially licensed shirts or items from all of your favorite fandoms, please check out all of the items that are available at the link on TatooineSons.com.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
All right. Our first headline: why Star Wars trilogy editor Marsha Lucas hates the sequel.
Dang.
This is all over social media
news
this week, but the article headline is actually from denofgeek.com. It's a site that has a reasonable reputation.
I've used them for What If and stuff.
Yeah,
quite
it's
a bit.
not terrible. It's important to note that the headline is actually pretty accurate for the story. But here's why I consider it clickbait. This Marcia Lucas quote is from the foreword to a new book by J.W. Rinsler entitled Howard Kazanjian, A Producer's Life. Now, Kazanjian was a legendary film producer and longtime collaborator of George Lucas. He was heavily involved in the original trilogy. In the foreword, Marcia Lucas, who divorced from George in 1983, shares her thoughts on the sequel trilogy. And she says, and I quote, "I like Kathleen. I always liked her. She was full of beans." I'm not quite sure what that means.
Is that a positive term?
I think so, maybe. Anyway, she was really smart and really bright, really wonderful woman. And I liked her husband, Frank. I liked them a lot. Now that she's running Lucasfilm and making movies, it seems to me that Kathy Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And J.J. Abrams is writing these stories. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. I thought, you don't get the Jedi story. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. Okay, here's what the article fails to mention. Marcia Lucas has been equally critical of the prequel trilogy, which was written and directed by George Lucas, which he's the one that gets to tell the story. It's his story with it. In fact, after seeing The Phantom Menace, she says she sat in the car and cried because it was so horrible. She was so devastated by it. First of all, I want to say, I'm just going to throw this in there. This is commentary now. I noticed that Marcia Lucas says a lot about Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, but she didn't say anything negative about Ryan Johnson. Anyway, the other thing, though, is Marcia Lucas is entitled to have an opinion.
Yes.
And she's entitled to share it.
Yeah.
But this headline, it's carefully crafted to just capitalize on sequel trilogy controversy. And that's why, while the story is accurate, the headline is clickbait. So I'm going to give it a clickbait level of 5. All right.
Yeah. Breaking news. Leaked image of Professor Xavier in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness confirms Patrick Stewart's return. This headline is from the Illuminati. We've mentioned them a few times before.
Reasonable.
The article discusses a leaked image from pre-visualization of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This image is not a leak of Patrick Stewart as Professor X in the new Doctor Strange film. It is an image claiming to be a digital mock-up of Professor X that the leaker claims is from the previs stage of the production on the film. The headline is clickbait because it makes the reader believe that an actual image of Professor X from the film has been leaked, which isn't at all true. This is why I think it needs a clickbait level 8.
Thanks. Alrighty.
Got up there. Can you beat that one?
Probably. Guys, big news.
Okay.
Warner Brothers has officially decided to restore the Snyderverse.
No way.
I know. And we didn't even have to wait 3 years.
This, right?
I'm so excited. This is coming from decoding.in. First of us, none of us have ever heard of the website decoding.in, but the headline is purely clickbait. They link to another article by geekocitymag.com, which again, I've never even heard of, which speculates that the positive Blu-ray numbers for Zack Snyder's Justice League will lead to the continuation of the Snyderverse. The headline is stating as fact, something that is completely speculation. I'm going to give this a 10.
Easy.
Because there's no truth in any of it.
Not at all.
It's linking to a person who is speculating about something.
And it was all over social media.
Everybody was buying into
it. It's like, restore the
headline worked.
It's happening. No, but it's a lie.
Oh, it is.
Right, anyway.
But it did what it was intended to do.
Okay.
All right.
Samuel the Hutt. Let's talk about What If.
Yeah. This episode certainly had a very different tone from any of the previous episodes. Thor's a frat boy. Loki is tall and blue and also best bros with Thor. And Darcy gets hitched to Howard the Duck by an Elvis impersonator. That's all coming up next.
Welcome to Vegas.
What happens in Vegas needs to stay there. All right.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets. Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
I heard, one of the articles said that Howard the Duck's becoming like the Phil Coulson of the new MCU. Like he's just like he's like the cameo that just shows up in everything.
So how does Clark Gregg feel about that? You know? They're gonna let
his character's dead, so they can't really bring him in.
Isn't he played by Seth Green? I think he is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, though. The name.
Oh, you would recognize him.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
But yeah, he's showing up everywhere. All right. Before we get started, rating on a scale of 1 to 10, magical self-filling ales.
All right. Let's have you go first, Nate.
A 5. Ooh. I really don't know. This episode did not do it for me.
All right.
It was fun, but I really think that's all it had going for it. And no offense to anybody. It's just, it kind of felt, I mean, the Doctor Strange episode is my favorite episode of What If because of how dark and tragic it was. And it really told...
Because it's the polar opposite.
It's the polar opposite of what we see from Marvel on most occasions. It was a breath of fresh air from everything else that Marvel has done. This one kind of felt like it was going back to those roots, which was fine. But
what about you, Dad?
I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay.
I think, AC Bradley, the writer, tweeted about how she intentionally wanted to go sort of light and fun after zombies and the death of the entire Avengers.
And freaking Iron Man getting killed 4 weeks in a row.
Iron Man getting killed again and everything else. So I think she accomplished that. It was lighthearted. It was fun. I also think that there was a strategic decision. I think we've said, the three of us have talked about this off the show. A strategic decision to let that one be the episode that came out at the same day as Star Wars Visions, because Star Wars Visions was going to get all of
the publicity,
the talk and everything else. And that's fine. It worked out.
It did
just fine.
Yeah. So the main what if of this week's episode was what if Thor and Loki weren't raised as brothers? That's the MacGuffin. Loki was returned to the Frost Giants and raised as one of them. This causes Loki to become very different from the Loki that we know. And then it seems that Thor and him seem to be like best friends, calling one another like brother from another mother, like, which was really weird to hear Tom Hiddleston say. But what did you guys think about this new dynamic presented in this episode, especially after we got such like an in-depth look at the character of Loki in the Loki series? Dad?
It changed my thought process on Loki.
This episode. Mm-hmm. How so?
He's not just the narcissistic god of mischief of the films.
Mm-hmm.
He had such a positive impact, not just on Thor, but that whole, all of Asgard in the way that they played out. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, on the episode or on the conversation here. But I think that it really did change the way I thought about Loki, and then it makes Thor into a very, very different character. The relationship there is very interesting on this one.
Yes.
Nate, what do you think about this concept of how a brotherhood can be so strong that it can change the fate of the universe, right? What do you think about that?
It's interesting to think about, because brotherhood, of course, is important for us. We're brothers. Yeah, best friends.
Onward was a huge deal to us because of the brotherhood.
That was just a really great movie. But it showed how even if they weren't raised as brothers, they still were. It feels like an absolute point. Another one. They always will be at that point brothers, even if they were raised in different kind of areas.
Well, I think you're onto something. But if you look later on in the episode, when Thor's asking for help to clean up his mess, Loki, his brother, is like, "I'm gonna dip." His words are, "I'm a brother from another mother," and he's getting out of there. So he's not dealing with it. He's kind of like a fair weather brother, kind of. And it seems like, in real life, real brothers, sure, they butt heads. Like, because it seems like in this universe, Thor and Loki get along perfect, right? Real brothers butt heads all the time, probably. I mean, you and I, we don't always see eye to eye. But when push comes to shove, real brothers come together to fix whatever's going on. And that's not the case here. They may get along, but they're not real brothers.
And that helps to add weight to Thor's continuous giving Loki more chances in the MCU, in the main timeline, in the movies. And then Loki's sacrifice for Thor at the beginning of Infinity War. They fought, they were against each other. They were always, Loki was always scheming against his bigger brother.
Battled New York.
But that's kind of how God's battle, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
you got a point.
Universe, so in the end, they did care about each other, and it really does change the story in my mind.
And so while on the surface in this episode they may have seemed like better brothers, they really in the end weren't as good of brothers. Yeah. So as a result of Loki not being there to keep Thor in check as a child, Thor has become a wild frat boy party animal, jumping from planet to planet, throwing massive parties that end up damaging much of the world.
If not the whole world itself.
To the point where they had to call in general manager of space, Captain Marvel, not Karen Marvel.
Karen Marvel?
Where did that come
I don't
from?
know, honestly.
You heard general manager and your mind immediately had Karen on the brain.
I mean, basically, though, S.H.I.E.L.D. was just like Karen complaining to the manager. And so Captain Marvel comes in to basically ask them to leave. And then they threaten to almost nuke Thor at one point, though. But, okay. What is Captain Marvel's place in the MCU right now?
I don't know, kind of overseer of galactic affairs. Kind of just seems like
it's a good title.
The political in-between for everything that happens. I mean, you have Shang-Chi with the post-credit scene. She's basically just there to be like, oh yeah, the rings called out somebody. It's cool. And then just left. I mean, it just seems
deal
like,
with another crisis.
Yeah, it's so strange. I don't really understand. She just always seems like the MacGuffin to come out at the end to save everybody, especially in Endgame.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think that Marvel Studios has truly wrapped their heads around what they want to do with Captain Marvel.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think Captain Marvel's got a great character in the comic books. In this one, she's just the really, really super powered being that they're going to bring in there when they need somebody to beat the tar out of somebody, and then she leaves again.
And dips. Yeah.
And that's not a fair presentation of Captain Marvel, from what I understand. And so I'm hoping, throughout Phase 4 and going forward, that
we're getting more powerful characters and thus villains.
Well, they're planning on using her more. You've got Miss Marvel series coming out in 2022. You've got the Marvels movie that's in production or in planning. So hopefully we'll get to see more of her in a more significant storyline versus just bring her in there to kick some butt and then send her away.
But going back to Thor in this episode, you guys don't really seem to be huge fans of this episode, particularly the whole party theme of it. Why is that?
I wasn't offended by the party
I never
theme.
said offended.
I never thought it was a bad idea. I was just waiting for it to get somewhere where it would start telling an actual deep character story, like every single other What If episode has done.
That's fair.
So it felt a little off. I don't know. Party Bro Thor was awesome. I mean, I liked the character. But I just feel like the way that it was presented just felt really off from everything else.
I don't like using this phrase, but if there has been a filler episode of What If, this was it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it had the weight of the other ones.
The only important thing was the very, very end, and that's it.
Yeah, we'll get there. But you were kind of talking about this earlier in the episode, Dad. Without Loki, it seems that the whole Asgardian mindset is flipped, right? After Odin lays down for his magic nap, Frigga changes her mood on a dime and says she's going to go on a trip with her girlfriends. And then, which is actually probably where Thor's party nature comes from. If his mom doesn't care, why should he? And even when Jane comes to tattle on Thor to his mom, she seems more upset that she has to cut her trip short than whatever Thor could be up to. So it's all about the party. why do you think Loki's absence could have caused this shift in the mindset? Or was this always the mindset that the Asgardians had, and Loki being there forced them to be more serious?
I feel like Loki was more of the party animal in the family. I think at least I gathered that.
Okay.
So maybe he was just partying enough for the whole family. And they probably just was like...
Someone's got to get the work done.
And since Loki was such a mischievous child for somebody to raise, they didn't really have time to party. They always had to have somebody watching. So while Odin sleeps, Frigga can't go to party because she has to keep an eye on Loki and Thor.
So Dad, if you only had one kid, would you have enough time to go and party at that point?
You know, this isn't a slight at anybody that doesn't have children or doesn't have more than one child. Okay. But because I know lots of people that are great parents raising great kids that only have one child. And that's fine. That's not what I'm saying. But they do say that you don't really become a parent until you've got more than one child. And so it changes you because you're dealing with more, the weight of everything is more significant. Your time is different. Everything changes with it. And I think the dynamic of the family changes along with that. And so it was interesting to see them play that out beyond just Thor being the only child. It affected the rest of the family and in the end affected all of Asgard.
Yeah. Also, where's Hala during all of this?
Yeah, okay, there was another plot hole. It was small, but it had huge implications. Okay, so Thor cleaned up.
It's Hela, isn't it?
It's Hala.
Oh, okay. It's Hala. So Thor cleaned up all of the... I'm jumping ahead, but this has been bugging me a lot. Thor cleaned up the whole Earth in less than a day. Had to, because
all the alien peoples helped out.
Yeah, they helped out, right? And then he just left his hammer, which when he was calling out to everybody to help him, he had his hammer.
No. He left his hammer while he was teaching the class, and someone vandalized it.
Across the world?
Yeah.
And it got vandalized.
Yeah.
After the party was over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, but seriously, what do y'all think Hala's doing right now? I mean, we saw literally every other character.
Probably like an internal party with this kind of a family.
Now I can't remember.
She's been exiled, so she's not a part of this at the storyline.
I forget how she showed up in Ragnarok.
Yeah, I don't remember either right now. But.
It's been a while.
So then, at the end of the episode, the plot finally takes a step forward. Not only surprising us, but surprising the Watcher himself, actually. Suddenly, an Infinity Stone laden Vision Ultron thing steps through a portal with a bunch of drones. Why do you guys think this surprised the Watcher? He's never been caught off guard by anything, including what happened to Doctor Strange.
Can I just say how much fun of a job it would be to be a Watcher? I mean, you just sit there all day just watching things like TV. I mean, it's kind of like that. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, you can't. He feels bad, especially like when it goes wrong. He can't do anything about it. He's just forced to watch it.
I think he was surprised by how powerful that being is. It's Ultron, the Infinity Stones, and Vision. That's like 10 times worse than Thanos. And
it's pretty bad.
I think why he was surprised is he now at that point knew he had to interfere. Because that Ultron probably already traveled timelines. Yeah. Because I don't think it originated there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because the Infinity Stones were seen with Vision, but the Infinity Gauntlet had the Infinity Stones. It's fake?
It was fake, yeah. Okay. Like, it was fake. It was revealed to be fake in Ragnarok, too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nate. I think this Vision Ultron thing has jumped timelines, and the Watcher wasn't expecting it.
And I like what you said, BB Nate, about this is the thing that causes him to have to start to interfere, because that's been the plot line throughout this entire series. I mean, he can't interfere. He can't interfere. He can't interfere.
The intro is just that.
Now he's going to have to interfere with it. That was a fun moment.
That moment got me excited.
Yeah.
Do
you think this is the final bad guy?
What do we have? 2 more episodes?
2 more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the Watcher is going to create this Guardians of the Multiverse, and they're going to fight Infinity Ultron
Vision.
Infinity Vision.
Infinite Vision or something like that.
Yeah.
Or
That's
Ultron,
cool.
whatever it is.
All right. Well, this episode may have been a disappointment to some when you compare it to previous episodes of What If. I have a feeling that they put this episode here to give us a little bit of a break. These next couple episodes will likely be crazier and darker than anything we have seen previously.
Yeah. BB Nate, what are we talking about in your movie moments?
Well, there is just one new release for movies.
Okay. That's it?
And not much movie news either. It's been kind of a boring week.
Well, as far as movies go.
But not for this podcast.
We'll talk about all that next. Hey, BB Nate, it's that part of the show where we talk about ratings and reviews.
It really is. But we don't have any reviews. It really is. But, we don't have any reviews to read this week. But it's fine. It's fine. It's been a really good run.
Yes.
Okay, that's true. Samuel the Hutt, why don't you explain why we ask for reviews every week?
Yeah. Reviews are podcast word of mouth. When someone sees a positive review, especially a review that goes into really specific reasons why someone loves the show, it helps others decide whether to give us a listen or not.
Yeah, it's not really any different than when someone tells a friend that they need to go watch a movie or a TV show and why. The podcast or that suggestion to listen to the podcast is really all the encouragement that someone needs.
Exactly. So if you really do enjoy Tatooine Sons, one of the best ways you can help us out is to give a review at podchaser.com/Tatooine Sons.
Yeah, and remember, you can rate and review more than just the show. You can also review individual episodes. So if you've already given us a review before on Podchaser, you can do it again on this episode.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, if you give us a review, we'll make
Actually, we didn't mention it.
We didn't
I
mention
forgot to mention it.
But we
So
can
why don't you
it
mention
now.
it?
Exactly. If you give us a review, we'll make a donation in your honor to one child to help provide food, medicine, education, and more to a child who really needs it.
Yeah. So please head on over to podchaser.com/Tatooine Sons and review this show.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
There was only one new movie release this week, and it was Dear Evan Hansen, rated PG-13 for thematic material involving suicide, brief strong language, and some suggestive references.
Okay.
I've heard it has great music, and it is adapted from a award-winning Broadway show, but it stands at a whopping 35% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a very strong 93% audience.
That's really good.
It's actually one of the most divided movies I have seen in a while, at least new. And it might just be why the audience is so high is there are just a small amount more than 50 reviews.
Okay.
So there's not much to go off of.
Wait and see how that goes.
Exactly. A wait and see. Now, in movie news, Shang-Chi is posed to eclipse Black Widow this weekend as the top grossing film of 2021. Now, Black Widow made $183.4 million in its theatrical run, and Shang-Chi has already made $181.8 million.
Wow.
Now, this is all domestic, not including worldwide, but F9, which is just a crazy movie.
I forgot about that.
I did too. Made $173 million.
Okay.
So... yeah, I'm expecting Shang-Chi is kind of the movie that we all expected it to be. It kind of brought theaters back, and I'm sure we're going to see that more with Dune. And
next weekend will be interesting.
Next weekend will be interesting. Yep. But the internet is buzzing with the announcement yesterday of the all-star voice cast for the animated Super Mario Bros. Movie set to release in December 2022. Now, before I mention who they are, what are y'all's thoughts on this voice cast? Some of the choices.
Awesome, except why are we making this movie?
Yeah, right? Why? It's Illumination, so it's going to be good.
Okay, maybe it'll be great.
I'm sure it'll be good, but we're having
It has great voice
It does. We're having Chris Pratt, of all people, to voice an Italian plumber as Mario. Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. Not sure. That's okay.
You would recognize him.
I know who it is. I'm not sure if that fits, but Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong and Jack Black as Bowser.
What?
I feel like they just went, we have all these stars. Now let's put them in the roles that fit the weirdest and just go with it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it feels like.
We'll have to keep our eyes.
But I'll still probably watch it just for the sake of it.
So we're not really going to a movie this week because of family and travel and all this other stuff. Maybe we'll see Dear Evan Hansen before next Friday.
Maybe, but we have a movie. We have a movie on Thursday that we're going to see. But before we get to that, Venom actually came out 3 years ago with mixed reactions. It was loved by most audience members, but it absolutely panned by critics.
Like Dear Evan Hansen.
Interesting. We will be going over some of the themes and points in the original Venom, and we will speculate, maybe responsibly, about Venom Let There Be Carnage.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Batman has no limits.
You and I were fans of this movie more than most because we had actually read the comics that it's kind of based off of
the Lethal Protector comics.
Yeah.
I still have that, and they're really great comics, and it's very loosely based from that series. But here's a little refresher on Venom from 2018. Journalist Eddie Brock is trying to take down Carlton Drake, the notorious and brilliant founder of the Life Foundation. This isn't okay. I'm going to knock down this rumor right now. This movie is not in any way related to the Life movie that came out a year before that dealt with an alien symbiote breaking out on a ship and it was called Life with the Life Foundation, and it's been rumored to be connected because it was a Sony movie, but it isn't. While investigating one of Drake's experiments, Eddie's body merges with the alien Venom, leaving him with superhuman strength and power. Twisted, dark, and fueled by rage, Venom tries to control the new and dangerous abilities that Eddie finds so intoxicating. Before I get into it, what are y'all's thoughts on this movie from when you first saw it? When you only saw it.
Yeah, I still have only seen it the first time.
We need to see it again before Thursday if we do.
I thought it was good the first time I watched it. It was certainly different than the Venom that we had been previously exposed to, but it was a fresh feel. It felt more like the Venom you would know from comics, right? He's got that kind of dark, twisted sense of humor to him, but he's not super serious like the one we saw in 3, which is very similar to the character in the comics. Also, he was, the bigger, buffer look and stuff, and just felt right.
It did.
And I remember having fun in the movie, and it was an interesting story. Wasn't there like a big battle on like a space shuttle at the end or something like that?
Kind of a space platform.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. So I remember really liking it. And I'd love to see it again.
You did?
I liked it. I thought it was funny. I remember that. I remember thinking it was a lot funnier than I anticipated it being. I liked the way that it's Tom Hardy, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Tom
Hardy did the voice of both Venom and himself, of course.
Oh, interesting.
Which is something I didn't know until I did some research more today.
I didn't know that either. I thought that it was fun. And that's actually a fun way to play the character because he is actually kind of arguing with himself. So that's kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I remember walking out of the theater remembering that the critics had panned it pretty badly and thinking it was a lot better than I expected it to be. So.
Yes, same here. But there were some not so nice parts about this movie, at least not so funny. We dealt with medical experimentation. Now, this is a main theme throughout the entire movie. It sets up the bad guy and his motives. It also shows how far he will go to accomplish his goal, as misguided as it is. This sets up the villain in a way that we can hate him even more than Venom, who isn't a good guy himself. All in all, Eddie is a good guy with some anger problems, but the symbiote brings out those anger problems even more, which is a main part of the comics and this. Now, the symbiote that takes over Drake, Riot, brings out the parts we have already seen, the evil ones. Now, Carlton is a very evil man, but what did you guys think of Drake's character?
Yeah, Drake is Bodhi, right? Yeah.
Riz Ahmed.
Yeah, okay. I remember he was so cynical and no, clinical is the word I'm looking for. Everything was just matter of fact. It's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because that's what needs to be done.
Experimenting on homeless people is completely fine.
He had no moral compass whatsoever because he thought what he was doing, everything he was doing because he thought it was right. Also, the Venom version of him, Riot, that's cool.
It was really cool symbiote.
But I do remember thinking he was a good villain. It was just so like shocking, all of the stuff that he was willing to do.
The best villains are the villains that actually believe they're the good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker storyline is that way, right? And it's the same way with Carlton Drake. He thinks what he's doing is right. It's good. It's going to accomplish the positive. It's Thanos.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what makes that character so much fun.
It is.
Even though what he's doing is crazy.
And touching more on it, an evil that takes over his host and feeds on his darkened emotions is what the symbiote is. We understand that the Riot symbiote is one of the most evil of the Clintar race, which is the race from the alien planet of the symbiotes.
That's what they're called?
They're called the Clintar.
Venom
is
not know that.
Venom is normally an outcast from that race because he tries to bond with the host and not consume it fully. This is where we see the difference between the symbiotes. Riot just wants to control like Drake does. Drake just wants to be evil and control everything, and so that Riot is able to bond to him well. And Venom wants to exist with the host and learn things like Eddie does as a reporter.
So Venom really is kind of a good guy?
Yeah. What do you guys think about how Venom was portrayed in this movie compared to the so-so portrayal in Spider-Man 3?
Do we tell the story?
Yes, let's tell the story.
Quickly, because we still need to discuss. But yes.
Sam is 6 years old. He is a mega Spider-Man fan.
Look, I showed up to this thing in my, muscle padded,
Shazam padded Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, I was ready.
We're there for the IMAX viewing, first showing on Saturday morning after it comes out. Mm-hmm. We're in line because there's no reserved seating. We're in line like 45 minutes before it starts. And he is, without a doubt, the youngest person in this line. And it is packed in the lobby. And all of these people are coming up to him and saying, "Are you not scared?" And he was saying, "No, I'm not scared at all. I love Spider-Man. I'm excited." He's going. So we get into the movie and, IMAX, big screen.
Loud.
We were in the far back.
Sound. We were in the very back row. And you get to the scene in Spider-Man 3 where Peter Parker is using the church bell to rip it off of his body, dinging it, and it's falling on Eddie. And then Eddie becomes bad Venom in this with his face. And I look over at Sam and I'm like, okay, he's getting freaked out here. I had no idea. All of a sudden, when real Venom's mouth opens with his teeth and he comes at the screen, I kid you not, this happened exactly as I'm about to describe it. Samuel the Hutt screams at the top of his lungs, "Jesus told me I have to leave, Daddy!" And we got out of that theater.
You threw me over the seat
fast as we could. And it was like 3 or 4 years before you would watch that movie. It took me 3 months before I got to see the ending of that movie because of that. So anyway, without a doubt, I like this version of Venom better.
Oh yeah, because it feels more like two characters. In Spider-Man 3, it was Eddie Brock.
It was Eddie Brock.
Yeah, it was just him. He happened to be all freaky looking. This one, it's like two warring minds. It's a really neat concept.
It's a really interesting. And speaking about religion, and Jesus told me to leave. This movie has a lot of religious elements and even references a biblical story. Drake does a great job of recounting the story of Abraham and Isaac. He just gets the point of the story all wrong. From Drake's perspective, Isaac was the hero and God was the villain who eventually abandoned humanity.
What?
That's why we have war and poverty, Drake says. But Drake is going to save humanity. I won't abandon us.
Talk about a God complex.
By creating alien-human hybrids who can live on another planet. A lot like the Clintar race.
Makes sense.
The world, he says, won't last much longer. Drake's idea, of course, will require tons of people to die for the cause as laboratory rats. Those are the homeless people he just takes off the street and experiments on. They are the Isaacs, and he doesn't really care about ethics in this medical research.
It's really interesting how you could take a biblical story and twist it and make something completely different come from it, because we see that in religion all the time. With that, and it doesn't matter. People can claim to be Christian and they can claim to know the Bible, but they can twist it and
it's usually
come up with
the ones who know the Bible that can twist it the best.
And they can come up with some really, really scary things.
They can. But there are a lot of big themes in a movie that just seems like a fun action superhero
with a big
comedy
guy who likes
with a big guy who likes to eat bad guys' heads. Which actually, I found out why Venom likes chocolate so much. There's a specific chemical in brains that the Clintar race are required to have, and that specific chemical is actually in chocolate.
So that's the vegetarian.
That's the
yes. It's like the tofu to the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yes.
You following that?
But let's go with the Venom Let There Be Carnage. It looks like, again, this movie will have a lot of influences from religion, with the final set piece being set in a church.
Oh, really?
And the name slightly referring to Let There Be Light with Let There Be Carnage.
Yeah, I can see that.
What we know for this movie is that it'll be a lot of fighting and action. Really no exposition. That was said by Andy Serkis. He just wanted a big ol' action movie.
It's Pacific Rim.
It's Pacific Rim.
Okay.
We're not supposed to get long stories, and that actually might help and play better to critics and audience, since one of the complaints for the first movie was that the pacing and setup was too slow. People thought that getting to Venom took too long in the original movie. Now, Carnage is going to become Cassidy instead of bonding with him, doing what Venom does not like to do. He's going to consume Cassidy. And we learned this because the whole scene in the trailer where Carnage is getting shot at in the prison and he opens up a hole.
I was wondering about that.
The flesh of Cletus is Carnage's flesh. We also see that in the transformation scene in the church. Instead of the kind of like a mouth of like a snake eating prey going over it completely, it pulls out.
Oh, interesting. So did Riot not consume?
He did not. No.
Oh, okay.
He was just such a powerful symbiote that he didn't really have to.
Interesting. Okay.
And okay, the end credit scene is being teased.
This is the only part that you're going to the movie for.
Most people are probably only going to the movie for. The end credit scene has been teased by Sony, by everybody, saying that it's absolutely needed to be seen in a theater. But even early screening from media outlets didn't have a post-credit scene, and they have no idea what it is. What are you guys hoping to see in the post-credit scene?
From all of the little rumors and stuff, I mean, I'm probably building a headcanon that's just going to get shattered by the end, and I'll be all disappointed. But from everything I'm seeing, I think it's reasonable-ish to think that there might be something relating to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man or Tobey Maguire Spider-Man or one of the other Spider-Verses that this isn't directly connected to. There could be something going together to link the two. From everything I'm seeing, it could happen.
I'm correct that the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man was a Sony production.
It was.
Yes.
And we don't have a Venom for that universe.
I think that we're going to see I think we're going to see that.
I think so too.
Yep, I think we're going to see.
And with
Andrew
Eddie
Garfield.
Brock actually working for the Daily Bugle again and not the Daily Globe, that might change things up a lot, like in the comics. I'm very excited for this movie and the direction it is going, and I have a lot of faith in Andy Serkis, so I hope he doesn't let me down as kind of his main big directorial debut. But Venom Let There Be Carnage comes out on October 1st in theaters only.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yes, there's a Black Panther 2 leak hinting at the possibility of Submariner appearing
Isn't that
in the
sandwich?
film.
No.
It makes me hungry for one, though.
No, he's a character.
No, he's basically Marvel's Aquaman.
Yeah,
he is. And the Injustice animated movie earned its R rating in violent red band trailer.
I haven't watched it. Have you guys? You've watched it?
I have. I've watched it a couple times. It looks really good. I'm very excited for it. But
it's just Invincible level.
From the couple scenes where they had violence, it seems surely like it will be.
Okay. The classic KOTOR game is coming to Nintendo Switch on November 11th.
Oh, very cool.
With that. So that'll be cool. All right. You guys ready? If you've waited all the way down, we told you we'd have another big announcement.
Yes. Sorry you had to wade through all of that. No, okay.
Exactly. Well, we had so much fun interviewing James Watt and Kanako Shirasaki, the producers of Star Wars Visions, over the last week, that we decided to have some big interviews again next week.
We decided?
We did really decide. Somebody gave us the opportunity and we jumped on it. All right.
Next week's show will include an interview with David Shane and Ken Cunningham, the writer and director of Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales.
That's awesome. It's so cool. The interview will release as part of our regular show on October 1st, the day that Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales premieres on Disney+.
That's right. That's going to be so much fun. And if you guys all seen the trailer?
I watched bits and pieces of it.
It's so fun. It looks great. We want you to make sure you don't miss this episode. So please follow Tatooine Sons on whatever podcast app you use. Just like right now, go ahead and hit that button and we'll be done. Boop. And then you'll get notified whenever whenever the next episode drops. And also it really does help the show when you follow us on your podcast app. If you are a regular listener of this show, or if you're a first time listener even, thank you for sticking around to the end. Our goal is to make sure that we're offering very entertaining and engaging a show with great conversation. And so we are doing something in September that we're asking you for some help with. Please email us the answer to this question. What is your favorite podcast and why? Again, that is not a veiled attempt to build our egos where you tell us how awesome we are.
No, that's what the reviews do.
That's right. That's exactly. So if you want to do that, give us a review. But this is honestly, we want to know what your favorite podcast is and why you love that podcast so much, because that's how we learn without having to listen to dozens of podcasts every single day. And so it helps us make the show a little bit better. Everyone who emails is going to be entered into a drawing, and one lucky winner is going to win Turbis, or a Porg shirt, but we all know his name is Turbis, from Designed by Humans. But just make sure that you send in your email no later than this coming Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Again, that email address is feedback@tatooinesons.com. Feedback@tatooinesons.com. So cool. Thank you guys so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Yes, and if you had a good time listening, it'd be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and of course, this show's only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world, so be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action, join our Facebook discussion group, and keep up to date on everything we got going on at TatooineSons.com.
And again, I mentioned it a minute ago, but I'm going to mention it again. Make sure you follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss this next episode. And then remember to drop us a review at podchaser.com/TatooineSons. And when you do that, we are making a donation in your honor to one child to help a child living in extreme poverty. So you can be an awesome person just by writing just 3 sentences on a computer. That's pretty cool. So, all right. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.